Pam Bondi just went toe-to-toe with CNN, and the aftermath is about to explode. Accused of hiding behind a scandal, she's not backing down. She's coming for the truth. Is she playing everyone, or is something bigger at stake? You won't believe what happens next. Stay tuned till the end. This battle is just getting started. Chapter 1. The calm before the storm. Pam Bondi sat in the dimly lit studio, her eyes locked on the camera. The weight of the moment was heavy, but she wasn't going to let it show. Across from her, Laura Ingraham smiled, that almost too polite smile, the kind that made you feel like she was about to drop a bomb. And that's exactly what she did. Pam, Laura began, leaning forward. CNN's Elie Honig says you've been MIA. No investigation into Signalgate. What's your take on that? Pam's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. Look, Laura, you know how this game works. Ellie's always playing his part, stirring the pot. But there's a reason why CNN's ratings are plummeting. It's because they put people like that on TV, people who just talk. We don't have time for chatter. The words landed with a quiet thud, but underneath, there was a fire burning. Pam wasn't just defending herself. She was throwing a gauntlet. She had to be careful, one wrong move and everything could backfire. But this wasn't her first rodeo. She wasn't going to fold. You think they're just blowing smoke? Laura pressed, arching an eyebrow. Pam didn't flinch. Absolutely. They have no idea what's going on. They want drama, they want chaos, but that's not what this is. We're handling it, and we're handling it our way. A tense silence settled over the room. The studio lights hummed, and for a split second, it felt like time itself had stopped. Laura's face was unreadable, but Pam saw the glint in her eyes. She was waiting for Pam to crack. But Pam wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Let's talk about this investigation then, Laura said, her voice cutting through the silence. You're sure it's nothing more than a mistake? You're not worried about an inspector general stepping in, or Congress calling for an investigation? Pam's eyes narrowed slightly. She could feel the pressure building. We've got the best people on this. No investigation needed. The intelligence is clear, and our people are confident. This is a non-story, and CNN can keep chasing their own tail for all I care. The tension was palpable. Laura wasn't done yet. But Pam, this could blow up. What if you're wrong? What if there's something they're not telling us? Pam's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. That's why I'm here, Laura. To make sure the truth gets out. And the truth is simple. There's nothing to see here. So let's stop wasting time on it. But even as Pam spoke the words, she knew this was only the beginning. The storm was on the horizon, and it wasn't going to wait for anyone. She just had to make sure she was ready when it hit. Chapter 2. The bombshell hits. The room buzzed with tension as Pam Bondi sat back in her chair, waiting for the next round. Laura Ingraham's voice came over the airwaves like a sharpened blade. Pam, she began, you heard what Elie Honig had to say on CNN, right? He says you're MIA. Completely absent when it comes to investigating Signalgate. What's your reaction to that? Pam's eyes narrowed as the words hit her. Mia? The nerve. She fought to keep her expression neutral. Yeah, I heard it. And here's the deal. CNN's been spinning this narrative because they've got nothing else. Honig, he can say whatever he wants, but at the end of the day, he doesn't know jack about what's really going on. A slight smirk tugged at her lips as she threw the jab. Laura leaned in, clearly enjoying the back and forth. So you're saying Honig's just blowing smoke? Pam's gaze didn't waver. Exactly. He's part of the circus they've built over there. Just a distraction. People are tired of the drama. They want answers, not more empty chatter. Laura let that hang for a moment before tossing another grenade into the conversation. But Pam, how do you respond to the fact that he's calling for a full investigation? Not just a little one, a major one. He says there's no way a reasonable prosecutor could look at this and not see a need for an investigation. Pam felt a flicker of irritation. She wasn't some rookie being baited into a corner. This was just another attempt to weaken her position. Let me tell you something, she said, her voice ice cold. I don't need to justify myself to anyone. Especially not to some armchair quarterbacks who have never been in the field. We've got experts, we've got the intel. There's no scandal. Just a bunch of noise. Laura leaned back, a flicker of disbelief crossing her face. But Pam, doesn't this worry you at all? The Inspector General could get involved. Congress could drag this out for months. Do you really think it's over? Pam felt the weight of Laura's question pressing down. She couldn't afford to sound rattled, not now. Listen, Laura, she said, her voice steady. We're not worried. The people who matter know the truth. And when the dust settles, CNN's gonna have to eat their words. The tension in the room grew thicker by the second. Laura sat back, looking almost satisfied with herself, as if she had just landed the perfect blow. But Pam wasn't done yet. She wasn't going to let CNN or anyone else dictate her narrative. This is bigger than just Signalgate, Pam continued, her tone lowering but growing more intense. This is about shutting down the lies, about cutting through the noise. We'll keep moving forward with our work. Let the critics keep talking. In the end, the truth will speak for itself. Laura gave her a long, evaluating look. But what if the truth isn't what you think it is? She pressed. Pam met her gaze, unflinching. Then I'll deal with that when it comes. But right now there's nothing here. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken words. Both women knew this was far from over. And somewhere in the back of Pam's mind, she knew the game was just beginning. Chapter 3. The Quiet Before the Reckoning. Pam sat alone in her office, the door closed behind her. The heat from the lights in the studio still clung to her skin, but now in the silence it felt like a lifetime ago. The interview had been brutal, but she had held her ground. Yet the words from Elie Honig and the weight of Laura's probing questions kept spinning in her mind. Was she really in control? Or had she just painted herself into a corner? Her phone buzzed. A message from one of her top aides. It's heating up. CNN's not backing down. Pam's grip tightened around the phone, the tension in her body betraying her calm demeanor. The truth was, this wasn't just about Signalgate anymore. It was about her credibility, and how far she was willing to go to protect it. She swiveled in her chair, staring at the wall. The weight of the choices she'd made was suffocating, but there was no going back now. She had already gone on record, dismissed the calls for an investigation, and played it off like it was nothing. But now the vultures were circling. Another buzz. A call this time. Pam. The voice on the other end was low, urgent. It's escalating. Honig's doubling down. He's got more fire coming, and if we don't respond... I know, Pam cut them off. They think I'm hiding something. But I'm not about to let them paint me as the villain in this story. Her jaw clenched as she stared out the window. The night was creeping in, but the world outside felt distant. Her team was circling like sharks, but she wasn't about to let them see fear. She wasn't about to show anyone that she might not have all the answers. Get ready, Pam said, her voice sharp now. It's time to turn this around. We're not backing down. You hear me? Understood, came the quick reply. She hung up and took a deep breath. It was time to go on the offensive. She wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was fighting for her future, for everything she had worked for. They thought she was cornered, but that's when Pam Bondi played her best hand. The door swung open, and one of her trusted advisors stepped in. Pam, the press is eating this up. They're looking for blood, and if they don't get it from you, they'll go after the next person. Pam leaned forward, her eyes blazing with determination. Then they'll have to go through me first. Let them talk. We'll do what we do best. Stay 2 steps ahead. She stood up, her back straight. It was time to hit back, harder than ever. The game had just changed, and Pam wasn't about to let it slip through her fingers. We need to start prepping a counter-narrative, she said. Let's get on it. And tell the press team to brace for impact. The silence in the room was deafening, but it was the kind of silence that comes before an explosion. Pam Bondi had stepped into the storm, and there was no turning back now. Chapter 4. The Tipping Point. Pam was done playing nice. The gloves were off, and every ounce of her energy was now focused on one thing: taking control of the narrative. The storm that had been swirling around her for days was about to break wide open, and she wasn't about to sit back and let it drag her under. Her office was buzzing with activity as her team huddled around, strategizing. They knew CNN and their allies weren't going to let up. This was war, plain and simple. And war meant fighting on all fronts. Pam, one of her top aides said, holding up a phone. Elie Honig is at it again. He's pushing for a full investigation now. They're calling it unavoidable. He's got a whole new story lined up for tonight. Pam's eyes narrowed as she listened. This wasn't just about Signalgate anymore. This was about making sure her name wasn't dragged through the mud. Let him. He can spin it however he wants. But I'll be damned if I let him control the narrative. She wasn't kidding. The pressure was building, but Pam had been through too much in her career to back down now. She had always been able to handle heat, but this time it felt different. The stakes were higher. What's our next move? Another advisor asked, sensing the shift in the air. Pam took a slow breath. We push back. Hard. We need to hit them where it hurts. We're not just defending, we're going on offense. The public needs to know they're being played. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed her words. Pam's confidence had always been contagious, but today it felt like a force of nature. She wasn't about to let Elie Honig or anyone else define her. One of her media strategists spoke up. We've got a plan. A bombshell response. Something that'll blow the whole investigation out of the water. But we need to time it perfectly. Pam leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Make it happen. I don't care if we have to go live at midnight. We need to take the air out of their sails before they get any more momentum. I want them scrambling. Her tone was cold, methodical. But inside a fire was raging. They were coming for her. But Pam Bondi was never one to play the victim. She was a fighter. Don't forget, she added, voice dropping to a near whisper. We need to control the message. It's not just about facts anymore, it's about perception. And if they think we're weak, they'll come for everything. Her advisor nodded. We've got the right people on it. You'll be ready to strike back in 24 hours. Pam stood up, her presence filling the room. She was ready to fight dirty, to do whatever it took to stay ahead of the media frenzy that was threatening to consume her. The battle wasn't over, it was just beginning. And Pam Bondi wasn't about to let anyone forget that. You know what to do, she said, turning toward the door. Now let's give them something to talk about. As she walked out, the weight of what was coming hit her all at once. But it didn't faze her. She had been underestimated before. And time again she had proved them wrong. This time would be no different. Chapter 5, the final countdown. Pam leaned back in her chair, her fingers drumming rhythmically against the polished wood. The plan was in motion. Her team was working overtime, crafting the perfect response to CNN's latest salvo. The pressure was suffocating, but Pam wasn't someone who cracked under pressure. She thrived on it. Pam, one of her closest aides said, stepping into the office, Honig's not letting up. He's doubling down on his accusations, claiming you're deliberately stalling the investigation. He's even calling for Congress to intervene now. They've got their teeth in this, and they won't stop until they've got something. Pam's face remained unreadable, but inside a storm was brewing. She could feel the weight of the entire situation pressing down on her. The press, Congress, CNN, they were all circling, waiting for her to slip. But Pam wasn't about to give them the satisfaction. She had one move left, and it was the nuclear option. Then we hit them harder, Pam said, her voice low and lethal. We're not just defending anymore. It's time to go on offense. Make them look like the fools they are. Her advisor raised an eyebrow. You're sure about this? Going all in like this, it's risky. Pam shot him a hard look. It's not just risky, it's necessary. The longer we let them control this, the more they win. And I'm not about to let that happen. Her words hit like a punch to the gut. Pam was done playing defense. It was time to turn the tables. Prepare a full-on press conference for tomorrow. We're going to drop the truth bomb. I'll be out front, and I'll make sure the world knows exactly what's really going on. Her aide hesitated for a moment before nodding. Got it. We'll make it happen. Pam stood up, feeling the tension in the room rise with every passing second. She had worked too damn hard to let a media frenzy take her down. This was her shot. It had to work. The clock was ticking. In less than 24 hours, she would stand before the cameras and either crush CNN's narrative or watch as it consumed her whole. Listen, Pam said, turning back to her team. This isn't just about Signalgate anymore. It's about power, control, and making sure they never forget who they're messing with. As the team scrambled into action, Pam stood by the window staring out at the night sky. It was a game of chess, and she wasn't about to lose. The pressure wasn't going to stop her. It was only making her sharper. Let's do this, she whispered to herself. Tomorrow everything changes. The final countdown had begun, and the clock was ticking down fast. Pam Bondi had no intention of going down without a fight. In fact, she was going to make damn sure it was a fight no one would ever forget. Chapter 6. The firestorm ignites. Pam stood before the mirror, adjusting the collar of her blazer. She could feel the weight of the cameras waiting for her. The press pool just outside, ready to tear into whatever she said. Her hands, usually steady, were slightly trembling. It wasn't fear, no, it was the anticipation of the battle ahead. Today everything changed. Her phone buzzed with another message. She glanced at it, more headlines from CNN. Elie Honig was already out there, claiming she had no choice but to back down or face even harsher scrutiny. She's out of time, the headline read. No way to avoid the fallout. The media machine was in full swing, painting her as the villain. Pam's jaw tightened. Pam, her advisor said, walking in, a grim look on his face. The press is already lining up. They're expecting you to crack. CNN's running with it, calling this your last shot to save face. Pam took a deep breath. They can think whatever they want. I'm not here to save face, I'm here to win. Her voice was steady, each word cutting through the tension in the room like a knife. Her phone buzzed again. A new message, another prediction, this one even more aggressive. Bondi will crumble today. There's no coming back from this. Pam didn't respond. Instead, she glanced out the window, her mind racing. She knew this press conference would either make or break her. There was no turning back. She was about to make the most critical decision of her career. She walked into the press room, the bright lights blinding her for a moment. The cameras clicked and flashed, reporters eager to capture every word, every slip-up. She stepped up to the podium, her posture unshakable. Good afternoon, Pam began, her voice cutting through the noise. You've heard the rumors, you've read the headlines. But I'm here to set the record straight. She paused for effect, knowing every eye in the room was locked on her. Let's get one thing clear, Pam continued. I'm not some puppet, and I'm not going to let anyone control this narrative. CNN wants to paint me as MIA, as someone who's hiding from the truth. Well, I'm not hiding. I'm standing right here, and I'm ready to face whatever they throw my way. The room went silent. Every reporter leaned forward, waiting for the bombshell. Pam had just lit the fuse. Here's the truth, Pam said, her voice unwavering. This entire circus, this so-called investigation, it's a distraction. CNN wants a scandal, they want to create a narrative that doesn't exist. But I'm telling you right now, Signalgate isn't what they say it is. It's nothing more than a politically motivated smear campaign, and I won't stand for it. The reporters were on edge, jotting down every word, their pens scratching against paper furiously. They hadn't expected this response. This wasn't the Pam they'd been expecting. She wasn't cowering under the weight of their accusations. She was throwing them back in their faces. Pam looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every reporter. I'm here to do my job, and I will not be bullied into submitting to anyone's agenda. CNN has their own narrative, but I have the truth. And the truth will always win. As she finished her statement, the press room erupted into chaos. Questions flew, reporters shouted over each other, trying to get the next big story. But Pam stood tall, her resolve stronger than ever. She knew this wouldn't be the end. The firestorm had only just begun. But for the first time in days, she felt like she was in control. The fight had only just begun. Chapter 7. The calm after the storm? Or is it? Pam sat in her office, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. The press conference had been explosive, no doubt about it. The cameras had flashed, the questions had flown, but now the silence was deafening. She could hear the hum of the air conditioner in the background, a stark contrast to the noise that had engulfed her just hours ago. Pam, her chief of staff, Julia, stepped into the room, her face tight. The fallout's starting. CNN's already spinning their narrative. They're not buying the no scandal story. Ellie's back on air tonight and he's doubling down. He's calling it a cover-up. Pam didn't flinch. This wasn't the first time a narrative had been twisted against her. I'm not worried about Elie, she said, voice calm but laced with steel. Let him talk. The public's sick of the same old game. People want answers and they want the truth. I gave it to them today. Julia raised an eyebrow. You really think they're just going to let this slide? They're not going to stop until they get blood. Pam leaned forward, her gaze hard. Then let them come. But I won't let them define this. I'll keep pushing back and eventually, they'll have no choice but to admit the truth. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. She could feel the tension rising, the pressure of the situation creeping up on her again. The storm had passed, but the aftershocks were just beginning. Pam knew better than to think this would be a simple victory. This was just round one. The real battle had only just begun. As Julia left, another aide walked in, this one with a much more serious expression. Pam, you need to hear this. The White House is getting involved. Some key players are starting to ask questions about the way we handled the whole thing. Pam stiffened, the weight of the words hitting harder than expected. The White House? What are they saying? They're not happy with how things are going. There's talk about a cleanup crew being sent in. They don't like the way you handled the press. They're saying you might have come off too strong. Pam's pulse quickened. This wasn't just about the media now. The White House? That was a different ballgame. I'll handle it, she said, voice tight. They can spin their narrative all they want. I'll keep my eye on the prize. Pam, the aide hesitated. This could get ugly. They might force an internal review. Pam stood up, her face set in stone. Let them try. I'm not running from this. If they want to investigate, let them. They'll find nothing. And when they do, I'll be right here, ready to take them down. The aide gave her a long look before nodding. Understood. Pam turned back to the window, staring out into the night. The battle was far from over. Every move, every word she made was under a microscope. But Pam wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. She straightened her back and took a deep breath. The fight was far from over, but this time she was ready for what came next. The storm hadn't passed. It had only just begun. Chapter 8, The Game Changer. Pam sat at her desk, staring at the phone in front of her. Her pulse was racing, but she couldn't let the nerves show. Every move she made was being watched. The press, the White House, the critics, they were all waiting for her to slip, to make a mistake. But Pam Bondi wasn't the type to give them that satisfaction. Her phone buzzed again. Another update. White House has officially demanded answers. They're pushing for an internal review on Signalgate. Pam's fingers tightened around the device. This wasn't a coincidence. This was their way of trying to put the squeeze on her. Are they serious? Pam muttered under her breath. The White House wasn't playing games anymore. If they wanted her to back down, they were going to need more than just a few tough words. Her office door opened without warning, and Julia walked in, her face pale. Pam, things just took a turn. The media's ramping up. They're saying the White House might have something on you. This isn't just about Signalgate anymore. It's turning into something bigger. Pam clenched her jaw, standing up from her chair. I know exactly what's going on here. This is about control. They want to knock me down, but they're not going to get away with it. Not on my watch. Then what's the plan? Julia asked, a mix of fear and determination in her voice. We've got to act fast before they completely bury us. Pam took a breath, gathering herself. This was the moment she had been preparing for. We don't let them take control of the narrative. We turn this on its head. We're going to give them something they didn't see coming. Her mind raced as the pieces clicked into place. We leak the truth about what's really going on behind the scenes. I'll have my statement ready, but it needs to be explosive. We won't just play defense anymore. We take the fight straight to them. Julia's eyes widened. You're going public with this? You're risking everything. Pam didn't hesitate. I've already risked everything. If they think they can just push me around, they've got another thing coming. The plan was set in motion. Pam knew that once the truth came out, it wouldn't just change the game. It would completely shatter the narrative they had been building. It was time to stop reacting. It was time to lead the charge. Later that evening, as Pam stood in front of the cameras once again, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The press was already buzzing. The stakes were higher than ever, and she could feel every pair of eyes on her, waiting for her to make a mistake. But Pam wasn't afraid. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for everything she had built, for the truth, and for the people who had backed her. This was it. There was no going back now. You want answers? Pam's voice rang out steady and confident. I'll give you answers, but you won't like what you hear. The reporters shifted, the tension palpable. Pam was about to drop the bomb. This was the moment they'd all been waiting for. And she wasn't going to let them down. Everything you think you know about Signalgate, she said, her voice cutting through the air. It's a lie. And I'm about to expose it. The room went silent. Pam had just made her move. There was no turning back now. The final showdown. The truth comes crashing down. Pam Bondi had just turned the tables. In a final explosive statement, she unleashed the truth that would shatter everything the media and the White House had built against her. The lies, the smear campaign, it all came crashing down in one swift move. The world was watching and Pam was standing tall, ready to face whatever came next. But the battle isn't over. This is just the beginning. What's next for Pam? Will the truth truly set her free? Or has she just ignited a storm she can't control? Don't miss the next chapter in this political roller coaster. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another jaw-dropping moment. The fight isn't over yet, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.